Special thanks to Representative Omar of Minnesota. Oh, I forgot. She doesn't like Israel. I forgot. I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much, you two, for having this discussion, for getting out there and for warning women about the dangers of feminism. I learned too late that feminism was a scam. Today, I'm 55, I'm unmarried, I'm past the age where I can have children, and I have to take medicine to help keep me happy. I'm on medication. That is the scam of feminism. If there's anything that I could go back and do, I would have warned myself against the scam of feminism. That's a very serious and a very deep comment, and it's something that it broke my heart when I read it, because that's what I believe is happening today. I believe these voices like Lena Dunham and Miley Cyrus and Chelsea Handler are convincing women against themselves, telling women, you don't need a man, you don't need anyone, you should want to do everything by yourself. And if you do aspire to that, if you just aspire towards nature, that there's something wrong with you, well, always pause when you believe that you're being brainwashed. Always pause and ask yourself the question, what if we took this all the way to the extreme? Who is the most extreme feminist that you know today? Mine would definitely be Chelsea Handler, maybe Sarah Silverman, right? Definitely Lena Dunham, Alyssa Milano. And ask yourself a very simple question. Do you think those women are happy? There's no chance that they're happy. There's no chance that they're happy. So then that is why I believe that feminism is a scam and is not about uplifting women, it's about tearing women down. All right, well, now we'd like to open for discussions with the audience, and people disagree. You guys can just form a line right in the middle. She's going to be first, because I promised her that. A line over there, I'm sorry. I guess switch the camera.
If you disagree,
over there.
you get to the front, and this will be first. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe before was a bit of a spontaneous outburst and maybe not the best way to address my objections to what you were saying, I'll admit. But I just so deeply object to a lot of what you're saying, but at the root I feel like there's a clear misunderstanding about the core values of feminism. You're saying that it's bitter women, or that it's not allowing men to be men anymore, or demonizing masculinity. I really don't agree with. I don't think there's any value in kind of glorifying toxic masculinity that we have now, with making it seem as though being a violent man or anything like that is appropriate. I think it's really damaging.
Would you be able to phrase it as a question? Sorry for the panel.
Oh, okay.
I can say a couple of things back and we can have a discussion about this. So first and foremost, you started by saying, I feel like. It's really important that we know what you think like, because a big problem is that people are thinking, are feeling, and they're not really thinking anymore. Secondly, you brought up toxic masculinity. I believe toxic masculinity exists, but it exists inside of radicalized feminists, right? Where they're thinking that they should be able to own and control society because they're marching in the street with pussy hats and saying that they demand justice for a free and fair election, like they did with Donald J. Trump. I don't like this trend where we're trying to turn men, and you call it this. Masculinity is masculinity. I like masculinity. Masculinity is actually the one thing that saved me in life. I was grateful to have my grandfather, who was the strongest example of what it means to be a man, right? And because of that, having that structure, it actually saved me because he taught me personal responsibility. He taught me to have a relationship with God, right? And yes, he's a man's man. He did everything with his hands. He worked on a sharecropping farm from the time he was 5 years old. Today, that archetype of what a man is being taught that there's something wrong with it, that there's something that's implicitly violent about being a man, and that's wrong. And I think the people that are harmed the most by it, by the way, are women. Women are harmed the most. When you break down men and strong fathers, we are the ones that suffer the most.
And also, can I just say that, you know, men commit suicide at faster rates than women. Women actually live longer than men. Most men are actually in prison, and most men, more than women, are homeless. So
Women graduate more from college.
There are more women
In what way are we suffering? What statistic do you feel that women are suffering and men aren't? Because there might be a meninist. There might need to be a meninism movement.
You have a female prime minister.
I would just say, I mean, there's a lot of things to address there, but to begin with, what you say about having a strong grandfather, a male figure, if you're saying that you've internalized these things, these messages that he taught you, then surely there's nothing inherently masculine about those qualities. I mean, I don't understand how you're defining masculinity.
I don't understand how you're defining it.
Yeah, why
don't you define it?
Why don't you define it?
Because you're the one that so you should define what masculinity means to you.
Well, I mean, it depends. I would say masculinity now, obviously, just being a social construct, literally nothing more than a set of expectations that are placed on someone.
So then how can you call it, if it's a social construct, how can you call it toxic?
Because social constructs can be toxic. If you have a patriarchal society that is sending a message that men need to be dominant or they need to be, I know you don't like the word violent, but I think there's something violent about it.
About masculinity?
No. About the sort of masculinity that we have now, this toxic.
What makes that a construct, though? In order for something to be a construct, it has to begin as a norm, which a majority amount of people follow. A majority
it doesn't.
Of
if
people
you have a patriarchal society that is sending messages that men need to possess certain qualities, and I believe the qualities that they're suggesting should be adopted are bad.
Which quality? I just need to know what exactly you've seen when you've said that is an example of toxic masculinity.
I think men feeling that they need to dominate spaces physically and speaking over women, interrupting women, belittling them.
Yeah.
Do you see how good I'm being?
I mean, you can.
So, just a question. So, you just said when men interrupt and dominate spaces. Were you a toxic feminist when you interrupted me when I was on stage?
No, I was interrupting something.
I'm just asking.
But I fundamentally don't believe it.
I'm just asking because you're saying that somebody interrupting someone is now a symbol of toxic masculinity. You just interrupted me on stage, so are you a toxic feminist?
I wasn't interrupting you because I didn't.
You went bullshit.
Yeah, because you were
talking
bullshit. Because you were talking bullshit. I didn't interrupt you because you're a woman. I interrupted you because I didn't believe what you were saying. It's not that I didn't believe.
But maybe that's what men do sometimes. Is it possible that men sometimes interrupt because they disagree with what women are saying and not because they're toxic masculinity in the air? Like, do you get what I'm saying? Is that you're coming up with terms, and sometimes people just interrupt. I'm fine with the fact that you interrupted me. It happens all the time, and I'm not holding that against you. I'm just using it to prove a point that you've created an entire concept around when men interrupt women, but you literally just interrupted me, and you don't identify as yourself as a toxic feminist.
No, because I interrupted you on the basis that I didn't agree with the politics you're espousing, both of you.
Well, maybe men are just disagree with what you're saying.
Because you're a woman. The fact that you're a woman is completely irrelevant to me.
But maybe it's irrelevant to men as well when they interrupt people. Men interrupt other men. Men interrupt women.
That's not the case.
We're
There's
society.
a culture of men's voices being valued more than women's.
What is your metric for
Give
this?
us one piece of data.
Yeah,
one.
like a data.
Any piece of data.
You can't just say there's a culture of men interrupting women. What's your data point for this?
Any kind of interpretivist data where you're looking at interactions, at dynamics, you can see. I mean, what do you want me to say? Like a statistic?
Like a fact?
Yeah.
Any fact.
Any kind of.
How about the stuff dominating?
A recent huge cultural example, maybe?
So can I ask a question? Do you think we live in a patriarchy?
Yes.
Why do women live longer than men? Why are men more likely to commit suicide? Why do women compose 50+% of college
Why do we
graduates?
control 89% of the spending power within households if men are the ones that are going out and making all of the money, as we like to say?
Women have the sole responsibility of caring for the house and the children.
So it's a patriarchy that allows women a lot of responsibility?
Within a household, within a certain sphere, not a powerful one. The household is not a powerful sphere.
Then why are majority of business startups women, majority of master's degrees, and majority of doctorate degrees in the States?
The thing about women living longer, married women live the least long. Unmarried women live longest because they do not have the responsibilities, the emotional labour of being
Marriage
with a
is
man.
emotional labour.
Pardon?
Marriage is emotional labour for women, and that's
a great point.
Well, no, because the way that women support men, like It's a huge
thought
bad.
we live in a
They support
patriarchy.
each
I'm not
other.
saying no, they don't. No, they don't. I'm talking
But so
about.
this is sort of, I appreciate the discussion we're having. This is, you're such a perfect reason for
Because
I
you're
I
all
could never
emotion.
be a feminist,
No
because
facts.
everything that I just couldn't. It's like, you don't really know why you're calling it toxic. You did the
No,
exact
I
same
do.
thing,
I
but
know
you decided that
exactly
when
why
men
I'm calling it
interrupt, it's
toxic.
because you're a woman. But you decided that when you
it's
interrupt,
not.
it's just because you had a differing
You asked me
opinion.
for one example
I know,
of
I know,
toxic
I know. And then
masculinity,
you
and
say
I
stuff
told
about
you
the
people
marriage and
interrupt.
breakdown as an emotional labor. There are women, just so you know, that aspire to get married and have children and stay at home and raise
that's
good
okay.
children, and
I
that's
agree.
okay.
It's completely
So, but why are you not making it seem like that puts us in a position that's less than man? Want to create a society? Be the person that raises every individual that's in society. Feminism has made it seem like there's something